Hey, welcome to the College Football Insiders. It's week 4, our pre-weekend show. We're going to break down a lot of games. We're going to make some picks, some quick picks later in the show. We've got some intel to share from across the country. We've got some more news and notes to share from stories we had at cbssports.com or will have at cbssports.com this week. And gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I'm Brendan Marcello, your host today, joined by Richard Johnson, Shehan Jayaraja, and Matt Zenitz. Gentlemen, let's just get right into it here on the College Football Insiders with a big picture. I think maybe the game of the week. I think Shehan would say so. Number 17, Texas Tech at number 16, Utah. Big early Big 12 battle here. I think at this point, the two Big 12 favorites. I had Utah in the preseason to win the thing. I think some others did here on this show. But what do we think of this matchup and what we're going to see? Because, as you guys know, Texas Tech's schedule hasn't necessarily been uber tough. Utah's been on the road, but it was at UCLA, which obviously isn't all that great.
You mean 9-win UCLA, right?
Yeah. Well, no. Maybe you misheard it when he's heard 9. It meant none. So we got Texas Tech and Utah in Salt Lake City, the Utes and the Red Raiders. What are we thinking? What are we hearing out there, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, this is a humongous game for a couple of reasons, right? I wrote about it earlier today at cbssports.com, but these programs are kind of in contrast to each other, right? You've got a Utah program, hugely established, multiple-time conference champion, multiple-time 10-win season, a coach that's been there for 20 years, versus a Texas Tech program that's really trying to elevate itself in 2025. And this is the first moment we get to see whether this Texas Tech experiment was worth it. I wrote a big story over the offseason, of course, on Texas Tech's big swing behind their mega booster Cody Campbell and a lot of other figures on campus, but they understand this could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take advantage of these rules kind of coming to a close. And I think that the most exciting thing about this game in particular is, yes, of course, the brands involved, the players involved, the coaches involved, but the matchup between the Texas Tech defensive line and the Utah offensive line is going to be one of the best position group matchups that, frankly, we get all season long. Texas Tech, multiple players who expect to be picked in the top 100 picks in the 2026 NFL draft. David Bailey, the headliner, but Romello Height, Lee Hunter also in that group. For Utah, 2 potential top 50 picks at tackle in Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, along with 3 additional players who are redshirt seniors on the interior of that offensive line. So this is kind of the first stress test we're seeing for each of these teams' new eras. Of course, the Texas Tech new roster and Utah with their new offense under Jason Beck. So I am thrilled for this game. This is one of the ones I've been circling since really early in the offseason.
Yeah, you give a nice segue also there just by bringing up Jason Beck. So one of the things that I'm going to be keeping an eye on is the changes at offensive coordinator and quarterback for both teams. So with Utah last year, you saw some issues after they lost Cam Rising to the point that they had an uncharacteristically bad year, finished with 5 wins. This offseason, bring in Jason Beck and Dampier from New Mexico, who had a lot of success together there. And through 3 games, it's been great for Kyle Whittingham and Utah, and this now will be the biggest challenge for them. But you've seen Dampier follow up what he did in New Mexico last year by putting up some big numbers through these first 3 games. And then from Texas Tech's standpoint, you have obviously Baron Morton back, but you have the new offensive coordinator in Mac Leftwich, who had previously had a lot of success under G.J. Kinney. And even though Baron has not played full 16 quarters. Took me a second to do my math. Hey, has not played full 16 quarters, so has 11 touchdown passes through the first 3 games. So it seems to be going well so far under Mac Leftwich, even though similar to what I said about Utah, this obviously far and away the biggest test so far.
Yeah, I think for me, when I look at this game, first of all, it's interesting that it's right here on September 20th. Like, first of all, we may get this game twice. We don't know. And so it's interesting just from a scheduling perspective to have the first chapter and potentially the second chapter coming the first weekend of December in the Big 12 championship game, theoretically. The other thing, quite frankly, it just boils down to this for me with Texas Tech. Can you get Utah in like 3rd and medium Like, not even full ball. If you go back to that UCLA game, I think Utah had something like 16 third downs, and almost all of them were third and short. Like, can you in some way, shape, or form just force Devin Dampier to throw the ball? Like, force them to do the thing that is not exactly their strong suit. Exactly. I'm not saying they're going to be bad throwing the ball, but as we know, Devin Dampier coming into the season, the one Achilles heel for him last year was the turnover bug, Brandon.
Yeah, that's for me. That's the big thing. If you force Devin Dampier to make mistakes in this, Texas Tech is going to have a shot to pull. I say an upset. Here's the thing. I didn't know their AP rankings until I printed off the format for the show today. I've gotten to the point where I just completely ignore them because I do my own rankings every week, and I just don't want to be steered one way. I do find it funny that they're 17 and 16 their rankings. Imagine
2.5 point spread too. It's tight. It's tight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's as simple as that, Richard. It's Devin Dampier. If he does not turn the ball over in this game, Utah should win. I think that guy is a game changer. The offense, the new RPO system that they're utilizing there, the fast pace, they can play you up tempo. They can slow things down when they have to. And I'll say this, I think they've got a little bit more, I don't like the word swagger, but I do think that they've got a little bit more confidence about them going into this. And I think a little bit more to prove than Texas Tech, which I know is saying something because there's been a lot of hype around Tech because of the cash inflow and them having a great transfer portal class. But I think Utah, more than anything, was just so upset by the way last year transpired. And for the first time in a long time, Kyle Whittingham went out and went, you know what? Let's change this offense. I mean, it looks nothing like it has in the past, but the one similarity, which is Utah is still tough and physical as heck in the trenches. And that's what got them in all those Pac-12 championship games. That's what helped them beat Oregon back then. And I think that's the reason why they're going to end up winning the Big 12 this year. But this is the game. This is the one that's going to show whether they are going to be there in Arlington playing for the Big 12 championship in my eyes.
Yeah, and you mentioned the trenches, has some NFL caliber players along the offensive line. So that's one of the key matchups heading into this. Some of those NFL caliber players along the offensive line and matching them against some of the players that Shehan talked about with David Bailey, Romello Height, and seeing if they can neutralize some of those players. But it is interesting with Texas Tech. What was the big question for Texas Tech coming into the year? That they brought in all of this talent around Baron Morton and upgraded numerous different positions on that roster. But there were still legitimate questions entering the year about Baron Morton and if he could play well enough to allow this team to live up to expectations. And I know, once again, that the level of competition hasn't been Utah through the first three games, but still, if you go back to last week, faces Oregon State, a respectable opponent, puts up 465 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Barron has played to a point that is emerging more and more as somebody who has a shot to get drafted next year. So has gone from being a question mark to all of a sudden, I think, quieting some of those concerns, even though this is a big prove-it game for him. I will say for Texas Tech, though, I do still have questions about the running game. So obviously one of the big additions during the course of the offseason was Quentin Joyner. Lose him, unfortunately, to season-ending knee injury. And they have gotten some production out of that group. I think they have 3 guys at this point that have in excess of 150 rushing yards at the running back position. But this will be, I know we keep coming back to the same thing about toughest opponent so far. This will be the biggest test for that running game. And we'll see just how much that group can do against a quality opponent, because there is still a level of unknown for me with the Texas Tech running game without Quentin Joyner.
Yeah, Baron Morton right now is completing 70.4% of his passes, 11.4 yards per pass attempt, right? And he's averaging a little over 300 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And you mentioned that running back room. You've got guys that have a carries of 37, 24, and 28. They're spreading it even out there. And as you said, those 3 guys, Adam Hill, Cameron Dickey, and Jacoby Williams, all over 150 yards. Right now, as a team, averages 5.8 yards per carry. Cameron Dickey, though, kind of their workhorse there in the red zone, getting 4 touchdowns so far this season. I can't wait to watch this one. It will be fascinating to watch. The loser of this game still very much going to be potentially in Arlington at the end of the season, don't we
Especially,
think?
by the way, if Kansas State is as bad as we think. I said before the year, Texas Tech has 3 real games because they play Utah, Arizona State, and Kansas State on the road. If Kansas State's a joke, man, you're down to 2 games. So, like, you potentially could even lose both those games. Now, don't, but you could potentially lose both those games and still have a chance to get to Arlington. So, it's interesting what you said, just to kind of close this out, about Utah maybe having more to prove in this game. I'll tell you what. Texas Tech fans are treating this like one of the biggest games in the history of the program, because this is the moment, right? This is the moment that they're on big noon kickoff. They're on the road. They're against a team that they know is considered one of the standards in college football over the last decade. They want to come out and prove that they belong in that conversation. If they win this game, let's say that they go on the road and win this game convincingly, I think Texas Tech is a top 10 team, and I think that they understand those stakes are on the line.
Oh, absolutely. I think the winner of this is definitely a top 10 team. I got Utah in the top 10 right now. Rice-Eccles Stadium this weekend. That student section, something else. I can't wait to see the atmosphere there. Moving on, let's go to number 22 Auburn at number 11 Oklahoma. I will be at that game Saturday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. It's the return of Jackson Arnold to Norman, Oklahoma. As you guys remember, full-time start. Well, first full season as a starter, but it was off and on, right? He started 10 games, but he was benched 4 games into the season. Not even that, actually. He was benched at halftime after 3 turnovers in the first half against Tennessee. And almost a year to the day of the first time he was benched, September 21st a year ago. Now on September 20th this year, he's returning to Norman, but this time as Auburn's quarterback, with the Tigers ranked for the first time in the Hugh Freeze era. 2 programs trying to get back and stay in the national spotlight. The Sooners with a big win earlier this year, of course, at home against Michigan. Guys, I wrote a story earlier this week on Jackson Arnold. I think both sides have been saying all the right things, but there certainly has to be a little bit of bad blood there, at least bad emotions. Like, you look back at that and just how it has all transpired. At one point around the Red River rivalry last season, Brent Venables was publicly saying, hey, we're probably going to try and redshirt Jackson Arnold, allow him to kind of sit on the bench and save this year of eligibility, because everybody knew it was kind of a waste. They'd already put Michael Hawkins in there, the freshman, but they pulled him off the bench again and put him in there as a starter. They end up getting to a bowl game because Jackson Arnold helped lead them to a victory against Alabama, a shocking win against Alabama in the second to last week of the regular season. You do have to think, though, guys, right, that emotions will play a factor here for Jackson Arnold being back there in Norman.
It's not even just like the emotions. I think it's the mix of the emotions of Jackson Arnold and how Oklahoma, quite frankly, tries to play on that from the defensive side of the ball. We talked about this last week on the Insider Show with John Talty, was kind of talking about Darian Mensah and Tulane in that Duke-Tulane game, and talking about how, he thought that Tulane was going to have a little something for Mensah on defense. And they really did in that first half. Mensah was really not good in that first half at all throwing the ball. I think we see something similar here. I think, do you get a Jackson Arnold who's coming into this game trying to press and trying to impress, quite frankly, in Norman, tries to do too much? Do not try to do too much against a Brent Venables defense. I mean, you ask Bryce Underwood how that goes. I think Oklahoma on defense is going to really be able to shut him down and give him some things that he hasn't really seen when he's throwing the ball. I think Jackson Arnold, tremendous athlete. He'll be able to make something with his legs, but kind of the bespoke coverages that Brent Venables will bring, the blitzes that Brent Venables will bring, especially when they get into a third down situation. I love the Sooners in this spot, to be honest with you guys.
This is a situation to me that it's just worked out well for both sides. So obviously, I'm sure, regardless of how amicable a breakup is, you know that both sides are going to want to come out and get the better of the other party here. But at the same time, like I said, this is the epitome of a situation that's worked out well for both sides. Jackson's done well so far at Auburn, and obviously Oklahoma doing well at this point with John Mateer, and John Mateer playing at such a high level that while there have been some other quarterbacks that were viewed very highly by NFL scouts heading into the year, he's been one that, while some others have fallen, he's been one of the risers to go along with some of the guys like Carson Beck. Like, we was talking to somebody in the NFL personnel world the other day who spotlighted those two as two of the biggest risers at the quarterback position through the early part of the year. And frankly, he's justifying some just what Oklahoma sources have said about him heading into the year in terms of being almost like a Baker 2.0 type figure. Not saying that he's going to end up being the number one overall pick in the draft, but just showcasing some of the characteristics that led to that comparison. And something that consistently comes up with NFL people is just what a fun watch he is.
Oh, yeah.
He can play risky at times, as we've seen going back to Washington State and through these first 3 games. But you can see just some of that Baker type edge and just the energy that just gives the players around him. There's just
2 weeks ago against Michigan, he carried the ball 19 times, and they obviously did not want him to have to do that, but he took the game over and a couple of drives over. Their last drive to help seal the win was nearly 8.5 minutes. And they were running the ball effectively, and he was carrying the ball, taking off and running, picking up first downs. Dude's a gamer, and obviously, I think, obviously what helps him is that he's playing in the same system, right? He didn't leave a system at Washington State. It came with him because Ben Arbuckle is still his offensive coordinator. And Zenitz, you're talking about the comparisons to Baker Mayfield. Like right after that game, Brent Venables and Ben Arbuckle were both saying that after the game. And OU fans love hearing that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, you want to talk about all the emotions and whatever for the game. I kind of think that it might just be simple football stuff. I kind of think that Jackson Arnold's not going to be able to throw on this defense, and this Auburn defense has been horrendous against the pass on their own. So, like, you look at the Baylor game in week 1, even against South Alabama this past week, they did not look good. Maybe this is overreacting. I kind of think OU obliterates them. I kind of think this isn't much of a game. Like, I think that certainly I expect Jackson Arnold to have some moments in a comeback spot. They've got a great receiver room. I just don't trust them to be able to do the things that they need to do against this OU defense. And while I think Auburn's been decent against the run, I don't think they necessarily have to run with John Mateer back there. So maybe I'll be eating my words when we come back here on Sunday, but I really don't see how Auburn even competes in this game.
Yeah, real quick, Jackson Arnold, as you said, just not known for his passing, never really has been here, at least early in his career, averaging 7.3 yards per attempt this season. He's got 4 touchdown passes, completing 69.6% of his throws, but even last week, I think he was 13 of 24. He's missing on some guys. And Auburn, as we've said on the show in the past, guys, they've got one of the best receiver rooms in the country. And right now, we might try to hit on this a little bit, but Eric Singleton, the Georgia Tech transfer, the incredible receiver, questionable for this game, at least as of Wednesday night, and we'll see how that all develops.
And it was just about to touch on something along those lines. So the availability part of it is going to be one of the big components of this game. So for Auburn, have 6 players, including Eric Singleton, that either questionable or doubtful on the initial availability report last night. And then Oklahoma, 8 players either questionable or doubtful. So we'll see how things progress tonight when the availability report comes out in a couple hours. But the availability of some of those players, including Eric Singleton, definitely bears watching, even though for Auburn, it bodes well for them that Damari Alston at running back, who they had big expectations for heading into the year, has missed some time through the early part of the season, probable and expected to play at this point heading into this game against Oklahoma.
We've got 3 more big games to go through here as we look at the big picture. More college football insiders after this.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe to us on YouTube, College Football Insiders, and search for College Football Insiders wherever you get your podcast. Let's move over to SMU at TCU in Fort Worth, the last iron skillet. So I guess they're finally going to clean that thing. They always tell you to never clean your skillet, right? You're supposed to let it you got to get all those juices in there and let it kind of give you some seasoning. But this is the last one on the books, at least for right now. Kind of a sad day, but man, it's going to be pretty pretty heated there in Fort Worth on Saturday, huh, Shehan?
Well, by the way, I will say my buddy over at ESPN, Dave Wilson, did put out a story today on it, and apparently the real iron skillet broke in 2018 from rust.
Oh.
And so they just went to the store and bought a $50 skillet and replaced it and just put the plaque on it, which is just an incredible anecdote. But that's beside the point. It's funny, right? Because
no, hold on. That's not beside the point. Has anybody ever cooked in that thing? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
So many other sport trophies we take around. You got someone's had to fry an egg in that or do something.
I did a story over at CBSSports.com, kind of a big retrospective of this rivalry, because to me, in some ways, this has been a game that should be better than it actually has been. They actually have had 0 ranked matchups between these two teams since the AP poll started in 1936. And these are teams that have won national championships over that run, produced Heisman caliber players, produced some of the greatest players in the history of football, but they've never been good at the same time until this moment. And that's when the rivalry is ending. So it's kind of an irony in some ways, maybe a fitting irony in some ways. But the story behind the iron skillet was actually that in 1946, the rumor is that some SMU fans were grilling up frogs' legs to taunt TCU in the parking lot before the game. And they're like, well, fine. If we win this game, we're taking that from you. And that's essentially how the tradition started. But, we'll kind of see. I mean, I view this as a big opportunity for TCU to establish themselves as one of the IT programs of 2025. SMU already has a loss, of course. They didn't look especially good in that game that you were on the sidelines of at Missouri State, Brandon. And so I think that this game is much more about TCU. Can you close the door on this? Obviously, You're shutting down this rivalry. This is a big prove-it moment, a big opportunity for Josh Hoover, who I also wrote about this week. And I think, again, we talk a lot about rivalries, and this is one that are separated by only 40 miles, but it's also one that, again, has kind of been defined by what it's not in so many ways as well. And that's what makes, I think, this particular one so interesting.
Frog legs are pretty good, by the way. I'm a big fan. I got to say, big fan. I'm really interested in seeing how real the TCU thing is. It was a lot of fun watching them in person at North Carolina, kind of popping the balloon on the Bill Belichick experience on Labor Day night. And you've seen, they got players, man. Josh Hoover at quarterback, obviously Bud Clark on the defensive side of the ball in the defensive secondary. But Hoover's got something to him, and they're fun. And I think, you come out in this game and you put on a show. I don't know what the total is, but give it to me. I'll take it blind over, because I just think we're getting a lot of points and a lot of fun in this final, for now, skillet matchup.
But both of these teams are good enough to be ranked. I know Nate mentioned not being a ranked matchup right now. Both of these teams are good enough to be ranked. We talked about Utah and Texas Tech being a matchup of teams that are both capable of competing for a conference championship. This also, to me, is a matchup with teams both capable of competing for conference championship. And part of the reason for saying that is what they have at the quarterback position. So brought up Josh Hoover. Josh Hoover, we talked about heading into the year being somebody who was deserving of more credit on a national level. I think people have seen why we felt like that with performances like what he had against North Carolina. Kevin Jennings, his resume speaks for itself at this point, but both those players also have a lot of talent around them, very good supporting cast. And for SMU, it'll be important just for them to bounce back from what was obviously a tough loss a couple of weeks ago and show what they're capable of, because this is a team, once again, that is good enough to be able to compete for playoff spot once again and be a conference title level contender in their conference to go along with being able to say the same thing for TCU.
SMU is just they get penalized too much, guys. 133rd nationally. Last week at Missouri State, it was just dreadful how many penalties they're getting. They've been prone to turn over the ball this season. They're kind of just hurting themselves in a lot of ways, and that's going to happen. They had to replace a lot of guys from last year's team as well, especially
42 new players. Yeah,
I think that gets lost in the mix here just because you see a familiar face in Kevin Jennings and he's electric out there. So SMU still working through some things and also working through some injuries. I think they'll end up getting their linebacker, Alexander Kilgore, back for this one based off of what I was hearing last week. So we'll see. I can't wait to watch that one as well. Let's see. Okay, let's move on to number 21, Michigan at Nebraska. Is this the Cornhuskers' big moment? Is this Matt Rule's moment to say it's my time? We'll see.
Year 3. It's year 3. This is when we get the Matt Rule thing, right? And his stop at Temple, 10 wins, conference championship finalist, 10 wins at Baylor in year 3, conference championship finalist. I don't think we need to necessarily jump to that level in the Big Ten at Nebraska, but I do think that this is a big moment for this program. I don't think I've been shy about the fact I think that Michigan's overranked at this point. I didn't think that they, frankly, even maybe deserved to be in the rankings heading into that Oklahoma game, and they didn't look like a team that was capable of stopping a team of Oklahoma's caliber. So I think that for Nebraska, I mean, they haven't won a ranked game since 2015, I believe it is. Like, that's a crazy stat. And, you know, to me, this is maybe a little bit of a fake ranked game in some ways, but that's even more reason why I think you have to take advantage of it. And there's going to be a lot of people pointing to the Michigan offense and some of the stuff they're working through. This defense has not looked elite through the first couple of weeks of the season. And I think people just expected when you lose guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, like that you're just going to be able to keep restocking them over and over again. And I don't think that's been the case. So obviously a big game for Nebraska, a show-out opportunity against a team that played for that won a national championship 2 years ago. I mean, this is something that they just have to do. They have to win this game.
I think one of the most intriguing things about this game, honestly, is the running back matchup. Matt's guy, Emmett Johnson, against Michigan's Justice Haynes. They are really, really fun players. They're actually pretty similar in body type, build, quickness, how they move. They're really fun players, and both of them, their ability to take pressure off of their quarterbacks is going to be key in this game. Bryce Underwood obviously saw in the Oklahoma game. It's obviously Michigan did not win that game, but Haynes has that big run in that game to score the touchdown and really give them some modicum of offense, explosive playability while Underwood struggled throwing the ball. I think Emmett Johnson for Dylan Raiola is going to be huge too, because that Cincinnati game, for instance, I think Dylan Raiola overall played well, but there's a throw in that game that quite frankly should have been a pick six. Like, there's still some yeet in there for our guy, Dylan Raiola. And because of that, a good running back is just such a nice thing to have for a young quarterback that is still developing. And Nebraska finally having an offensive line in front of them that I think you can count on mostly. That's not really a revolving door. I know they're trying to figure it out at left tackle, but that's not really a revolving door for the most part, is huge for Nebraska coming in this matchup.
One of the key components for Michigan, one of the things most worth monitoring, not only heading into this game, but just the season as a whole, is just how much they just allow Bryce Underwood to do, and just the trust that builds there is probably a better way of putting it. So obviously, anytime that you have a first-year starter at quarterback, anytime that you have true freshmen starting at quarterback, there's going to be a process there just in terms of him earning that trust with a coaching staff, regardless of how talented he is. And I think that, actually even more important than what I think, that the belief in Michigan is that you're going to see Bryce continue to grow throughout the course of the year. And I think that'll lead to just the coaching staff allowing him to do more and more. And one of the things that you saw last week that would be interesting to see if just continues into this matchup is the dual threat ability and utilizing his legs. So it ran for in excess of 100 yards against Central Michigan last week. I don't think it's any secret, just the caliber of athlete that Bryce Underwood is, and just showed the different dimension that he can provide just with his legs to go along with what he can do from an arm talent perspective. But that is the continued belief in Michigan that you will see Bryce Underwood, and it's not like this is anything groundbreaking whatsoever, but continue to get better and better as the year goes on. And I think that you'll see Chip Lindsey just allow him and just unleash him, probably a better way of putting it, more and more as the season goes on to go along with that.
Yeah, real quick, I think this being an early season game reminds me a lot of the position Nebraska was in early last season when Colorado came in. They were circled that. The crowd came in and just carried them the first half, and they rode that momentum and ended up getting a big win. I think something very similar will be in store this weekend. We'll pick that game here in our quick picks later. Last big game to really look at here in the big pictures. Number 9, Illinois at number 19, Indiana. It's brawn versus let's throw the ball over the field. That's not quite as sexy of a title, but that's what you're going to see when these two teams hook up. Indiana, not a very strong schedule, but when you can put up 600 plus yards against anybody on a routine basis, and you got Mendoza there at quarterback, it's a lot of fun to watch, much like the offense was last year. Illinois is just going to bully you in the trenches, right? That's just what they do. And I will tell you this, guys, that Illinois Duke game earlier this season, where Illinois won, I think, 45-19, when the new substitution rule where the offense subs in, you got to allow the defense a certain amount of time. Brett Bielema is abusing that and using it beautifully. He is doing so beautifully. And I can't wait to see what he does and pulls out all the stops here. On the road, by the way, when Indiana might want to try and substitute some guys or vice versa. Bielema's always trying to play chess when it just comes to things that are not going on between the whistles.
Who mocked Shane Beamer with that in the bowl game last year?
He did the substitution rule. The
substitution.
It reminded me of
lost his mind.
It reminded me of Scott Hall or Razor Ramon just doing the thing back in the old WWF days. But I got a good feel about this, at least who I'm really leaning toward. But what do you guys think going into this? Because, both teams are kind of banged up, especially Illinois in their defense, but maybe they might get someone back here soon.
Well, I think the big thing going into this game is that they're probably not going to get Xavier Scott on the field on Saturday. Illinois' really, really good slot corner is probably not going to play. Brett Bielema said today that he had a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. He'll get a second opinion on where things are at, but I don't know whether it'll be back on Saturday or where it's going to be at this season. But right now, no. Answering the question, is Scott expected to play? It doesn't sound like he's going to play on Saturday. If he doesn't, stock high in Omar Cooper Jr., the inside receiver for Indiana. He put on a show last week against Indiana State, 207 yards receiving. Look, it's hard to do what Indiana did last week when it's routes on air. I mean, they were perfect in that game, as close to it as you possibly can be. I know it was an FCS team, but again, if there are bodies on the other side, it's hard to do what they did in that matchup. I think they won that game 70-0. And Indiana State was in the negatives with yardage, I think, into the second half. It was really quite something. I lean Indiana in this game, especially considering that Scott may be out. I love Fernando Mendoza as a prospect, as a quarterback. I know Matt talks to some NFL people that really love Fernando Mendoza as a prospect. The accuracy for me is the thing that stands out when he's on. And he can be a little bit off. He's obviously a tall, kind of gangly guy, so the mechanics can get a little weird sometimes. But when the accuracy is there from him, he's a really, really intriguing player for Indiana. I don't think they have dropped off at all from the quarterback position from last year. They had Curtis Rourke.
Well, we spoke about risers from NFL draft standpoint earlier in the show with the quarterback position. Another one would be Fernando Mendoza. So, yes, it was Indiana State, but still anytime that you go out there and go 19 of 20 with 6 total touchdowns, that's impressive regardless of who you're going against, and just showed some of the characteristics that lead to people at the NFL level being intrigued about him from a skill set perspective. And obviously this is a huge showcase opportunity for him now.
I'm a big Elijah Surratt guy, by the way, at receiver. I love the way he plays, the big body he provides out there. And he's really, he's their leading pass catcher right now with 15 catches, but Omar Cooper is the one who's really exploded here early this season. We'll see what happens there when the two hook up. I considered Illinois and Indiana as my quote unquote wild card team to make the playoff this year. It was going to be one of those two. And now we get an early look to see who gets the early edge here early in the Big Ten season. All right. Much more college football insiders coming up. We're going to get into our intel around the college football landscape right after this.
The Rolex Sail Grand Prix is coming to Switzerland. It's the first time the 12 world-class teams have raced on Lake Geneva. For Sebastian Snyder's Swiss team, they have had their best season yet. Can his young and dynamic crew make a charge up the scoreboard? Who will conquer Lake Geneva for the first time in Sail GP?
Welcome back to the College Football Insiders. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brendan Marcello, joined by Richard Johnson, Shehan, Jay Araja, and Matt Zenitz. Let's get into our intel we're hearing across the country. today we broke news at CBS Sports that the SEC, of course, going to 9 games starting next season. But next Tuesday, they're going to reveal not just the 3 permanent opponents for every team for the first time, but they're going to reveal the entire 9-game schedule for all of these teams in the SEC. An interesting development and twist in all this, the 3 permanent rivals aren't so permanent. They're calling them annual rivals inside the SEC office. And now every 4 years, they're going to go back and review everybody's 3 permanent rivals. And those may change every 4 years. Of course, the chatter online was, yeah, they're getting ready to have Florida State and Clemson and Virginia Tech and Virginia and North Carolina join the SEC. I'll hold your horses. But this all goes back, gentlemen, to, if you guys remember a couple years ago, they've been talking about going to 9 games for 4 years now. They had developed, I wouldn't say necessarily a formula, but they try to make everything pretty even among these 3 permanent rivals, right? So everybody's got their main rival, and then you're trying to get a team that's maybe near the top, but also one near the bottom, so you can average things out to where everything's about as fair as you can get across the board. Well, teams change year to year, and they're obviously going to change every few years in the SEC in this new NIL era. So that's the thinking behind doing this new kind of review every 4 years with the 3 permanent rivals. I'm interested to see which teams get matched up, because I'll tell you this, several athletic directors I spoke to today, they don't know who their 3 teams yet are. Most of them only know 1, maybe 2. Some are obvious, but the SEC is still tweaking things. And Joe Castiglione actually said earlier this week, the OU athletics director, that they may change things all the way up until Monday or Tuesday when they make this announcement Tuesday night. So,
Brandon, I appreciate your reporting. I love your reporting. You're one of the best in the business. But enough about the SEC's schedule. I do not want to hear about the SEC schedule, about the 9 games that we've been talking about for 4 years. We've been talking about 9 games with SEC teams for 10 years, since I was in college. I do not want to hear about permanent opponent rotations and this. Just send the damn email with the schedule and the press release. That is all I need. It is a meeting that should be an email. I don't need some show on the SEC network that's a big schedule reveal. Enough is enough. Just give me the schedule.
This is all the NFL's fault, by the way. The SEC wants to be like the NFL, and they're like, what if we made, like you said, an email, like a graphic into a 3-hour special? And somehow that's like what we have to accept now in this world, is that, well, you know what, it's for TV, we're going to get some ratings on it or whatever. But like, no, that unfortunately, this is about the NFLization of college football more than anything. But it is going to be interesting, right? Because there are some obvious ones. Like you said, Texas should be no question, right? Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Arkansas. Will they mess it up? Will Texas be like, we don't really want to do Arkansas, we'd rather do Mississippi State? Like, is that sort of thing going to happen? What kind of lobbying is there behind the scenes? I mean, if you're a team like Auburn, right, you have these historic rivalries against both Alabama and Georgia. Maybe you don't feel so good about that. Maybe.
Well, you got Auburn fans that still want to play Florida from the old days when they rounded A-man corner, A-man corner, whatever you say.
It probably feels a little better these days than it did maybe 15 years ago.
And but as far as Arkansas, I'm told that all they know right now is that they're playing Missouri as one of their permanent rivals. Texas, you'd figure, would be the other one, but I don't know. It's crazy how people don't know yet. The ADs don't quite know, and everybody in the offices.
I mean, we've still got stuff in the SEC, and this isn't just an SEC specific thing. This is more of a power conference thing as these conferences have expanded. What is it? Texas A&M's never played at Georgia?
Yeah.
And they've been in the league since, was it 2012 they entered the league?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a lot of things like that you just shake your head. You're just like, what are we doing here? And then you do have teams, obviously, in the SEC that have like a bunch of different rivals. Like, Florida's got it's Georgia, Tennessee, but then also where they're going to play LSU. Like you said, are they going to play Auburn? And then you've got, obviously, Auburn's got a murderer's row when they've got Alabama and Georgia. Do you give them a kind of softer, so to speak, third team? Then you've got, a team like Tennessee. Well, they've got to play Bama. The thing with Georgia right now is hot, but like that's not actually an instant in Georgia. They did not play that annually until like the mid to late 80s, for instance. So there are just so many different amalgamations of scheduling that we're going to see. But again, my point still stands. Just send me the email.
I want to see who the like brilliant program that matches Iowa is, because Iowa managed to basically resurrect their Big Ten West schedule with their 3 permanent opponents. It's like Northwestern and Minnesota. Like they managed to get all the bad teams onto their permanent rotation. A little bit tougher in the SEC, where there's maybe only like 3 or 4 lackluster programs versus the Big Ten, where there's a few more of them. But like you said, I do think that it's good that we're finally going to 9. I do think it's good with the 3+6 setup. It means that you are going to get a chance to play everybody, both home and away, over the course of 4 years. But like you said, this should be an email.
I will not be watching next Tuesday. Okay.
I'll be waiting for the email at the end of it.
Exactly. I'm just going to wait for the press release. All right. South Carolina goes to Missouri, a really kind of interesting game in the SEC this week. But the big storyline surrounding there is quarterback LaNorris Sellers for the Gamecocks. Is he going to be available? Won't he be available? I was told by someone last night in the program that he's, quote, trying. He's doing everything he can to get in there. He has been at practice. How involved he's been, that's up for debate based off of what I've been told. But he's going to try to get out there against Mizzou. And listen, last year we saw it. When LaNorris Sellers went down against LSU last season, Carolina went from a team that was leading them, and you thought they're going to beat LSU to, well, they let the game slip out of their hands.
We saw it last week.
Last week, right.
Out the game. It was over.
Right. So South Carolina is a team that very much relies on LaNorris Sellers in more ways than one.
Yeah, if LaNorris Sellers doesn't go in this game, I'm not terribly interested in spending some of my Saturday afternoon watching it, to be honest with you, Matt.
Yeah. For what it's worth, from what I've gathered, it does seem like there's continued optimism that he will end up being out there.
Which, by the way, when he went out, I was not aware that Luke Doty was still a college football player. That was a jump scare. And I mean, I think this is already a tough matchup for them with LaNorris Sellers. If he's out, like this is big trouble, big trouble.
Hey, everybody get on the Ahmad Hardy fan bus, man, at Mizzou. Yeah. That guy is a beast. He is a beast. Keep an eye on him. He might end up being the best running back in the country.
Yet again, Brandon, Eli Drinkwitz got a team.
Yeah. Keep doing it
again.
I keep waiting for the ride to stop, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, he can't getting away with this.
We talked about the quarterback situation going back to entering the year, and I can't remember who it was, but who was questioning just Bo Pribula and not being able to run away with the job like the expectation had been throughout the course of the offseason after he was brought in from Penn State. He's been terrific through the first few weeks. Yeah, and has been obviously a big catalyst for Missouri having the success that they're having offensively and as a team as a whole.
Mizzou's a fun team to watch. Second half against Kansas earlier this season was a lot of fun. We hear anything else out there, guys? Anything else we want to share from the Intel circuit, from our cell phones to text messages?
I'm still getting questions today about the transfer portal. So obviously it was approved last night by the NCAA Administrative Committee, late yesterday afternoon, just to eliminate the spring portal window and to just have the one portal window during the fall, winter, even though it's TBD still at this point in terms of when that will open. Obviously, the recommendation from the NCAA Football Oversight Committee was for that to be a 10-day window that opens January 2nd. We'll see if that ends up being the case, but it does seem like we will have clarity on when that window will open at some point in the not too distant future. And I would be surprised if we got out of the next few weeks, or if we didn't hear something definitive at some point in October as far as the length of the window and just when that will open.
Real quick, what's the primary concern among the Big Ten coaches and administrators there about it being January 2nd through the 11th? Why are they against that?
I mean, wait, what was the quote from Ryan Day? So Ryan talked extensively about this. My memory's failing me right now. Do you guys remember just what Ryan said at press conferences? Because he was pretty open to discussing this.
So not in favor, but I don't remember specifically.
The catalyst that they had primarily mentioned was they don't want to impacting the college football playoff. But My thing has been
Then lose.
With the positioning of this, right? Because the previous window, we're talking late November, early December. So you're talking pre-playoff, first of all. You're talking pre-bowl games. That's, I think, one thing that college football is trying to avoid heading forward. But
right,
let's just say whatever, it's December or January 2nd, right? At that point, there are only 4 teams still alive in the college football playoff. So the reality of the situation is it probably is not going to matter. Like it probably is a very small level of harm reduction. And by the way, because let's just say the original proposed date was the 2nd through the 11th, which at least last year, the playoff games were on the 10th, the semifinal games. So they could have entered the day after the semifinal games, meaning only 2 teams would really be impacted by this. You're at the point where you're that late, where like you could have players deep down the bench enter the portal and you could just say, hey, we want to keep you around for 1 week. Like, I don't think that to me is a very real criticism, frankly. Like, I just don't think that it's realistic, the idea that is the plan to do January 31st? Because like then you're all the way around enrollment dates. Are you just going to wait till the summer? I think then you're in a messy situation with trying to plan your roster in a big way. Actually, I saw a quote from Baylor coach Dave Aranda, and he basically was like, look, the winter window last year is players who know that their opportunity where they are isn't very good. The spring window is the window where guys are trying to poach players. Like that's the one where you're like, we have this hole. Let's try to screw with somebody else's roster. And that's why a lot of people want to get away from that window. Now, of course, we can have the whole conversation about the efficacy of the actual transfer portal and all that versus unenrolling and all. But like, that's why they're trying to move to this one window. And frankly, there isn't necessarily a better place to put it than January 2nd through 11th.
Almost a year ago, the AFCA, they voted on this and they wanted January 2nd through 11th. So I don't understand. I know the Big Ten has their own thing and the commissioner there kind of pushes his agenda and everything, but the coaches overwhelmingly are in favor of this. I'd be so shocked if it's not there.
But Brennan, like we're still gonna see players Thanksgiving weekend tweet out the I intend to enter the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Like it's, I was actually talking to an agent about this last night, and he literally was like, especially for my guys who like aren't in bowl games, like what are we gonna do? Sit around and not do anything? He was talking about it. It's funny when we tweet the graphic out for one of our guys that says I intend to enter the transfer portal, for instance. Then, funny how it works. You often get different personnel people that follow the player on Twitter, and then I, as the agent, get to then go reach out to that personnel person who has followed my player to try to
but only after they officially enter the portal, right?
Well, I'm the agent. It doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter to me.
It's legal to have
exactly.
That was a joke,
agent,
Matt. Don't worry.
Yeah. With the agent, it doesn't matter. So that's why you like when you're still going to see Thanksgiving weekend. I intend to enter the transfer portal, and it's quite frankly because it greases the wheels, to be honest with you, so that everybody knows what we're doing here. And that agents can sort of, frankly, do their jobs on the back end here.
I will share a couple other things that have come up. So first of all, just to follow up on the playoff part of it, is important to remind people that players from teams that are in the postseason or in the playoff do have a separate window and an additional 5 days to enter the portal after their postseason game. So just important to make note of that. One of the things that has definitely come up the last couple of days, though, is just an expectation that seems to be there among a number of people that you're going to see more situations like Xavier Lucas, Jake Retzlaff, in terms of players that end up making moves after the window is closed or without ever officially popping up in the portal, and just unenrolling, lo and behold, enrolling at another school and being able to play at that school without ever officially entering the portal. And one other note to go along with that. So within the last couple of weeks, there was a defensive back from Miami that entered the portal and got questions at that point, just how that was possible, considering portal window is not open right now, and just how did he go in? The reason for him being able to do that, and something that will provide a means for players to enter even after the window is closed, is just either if they're dismissed by the school that they're at, and then if the school cancels their financial aid. if financial aid is canceled by the school, that gives the player the capability to enter the portal even after the window is closed. So maybe there end up being some mutual decisions or school doing right by a player that they just don't have big plans for, cancel the aid, let them go to the portal. But I think we'll see some of those situations during the spring, coming out of spring ball, even after the portal window closes during the winter.
Okay, guys, let's go inside the insiders. That still sounds weird. We're just going to start clockwise here. Richard, what have you been working on this week, and what can you tell us about it?
Well, guys, it's no secret DJ Lagway has struggled through 5 interceptions on Saturday night against LSU, and frankly, everybody's asking the question, what's going on? I mean, even Steve Spurrier was quoted this week saying that he looks off. Well, he looks off because he is off. The off season that DJ Lagway has had has been, according to his agent, as abnormal gets. And it stems from some lingering injuries and some injuries that have compounded. There was a core muscle injury that came up during last season that he had surgery on in January. There was a hamstring and groin injury that he got in the Georgia game last year that he was able to come back from a couple weeks later. His quarterback coach, JP Tillman, told me and our colleague Chris Hummer that, frankly, the groin and the hamstring injury then created a situation where Lagway was kind of overcompensating for those injuries, and it was making a more arm-dominant throwing motion. That was Tillman's kind of read on the situation. His kind of guess, having worked with DJ for years and years and years. Tillman is based in the state of Texas, where DJ is from. From that, it inflamed an old shoulder injury that he actually got from baseball when he was in high school, that he rehabbed at the time. In the offseason, Florida and Lagway's camp went to 2 experts, an expert surgeon out in California and the Texas Rangers doctor as well. And in consultation, they developed a rehab plan for Lagway. Well, that basically meant that Lagway effectively did not throw a football from January through April. He started kind of ramping things up in May, in June. Then he had a calf strain right before camp. And so that threw things off. So not only was Lagway's development kind of curtailed a little bit, but there were changes that Tillman wanted to make to how he strides into his throws, how he holds the ball during his windup to protect his shoulder, that they weren't able to put all the way in. Then in camp, Lagway's not going every single day in camp to start. They kind of had to ramp him up. And Florida's wide receivers also get hurt. Dallas Wilson still hasn't touched the field. They expected him to be a significant contributor as a freshman. Trey Wilson, Eugene Wilson III, who missed half of last season, had another different lower body injury and missed some scrimmages in camp. And Aiden Mizell also had some soft tissue injuries, I should say. So you put all of that together, and yeah, there's a reason Florida's offense looks dysfunctional. There is absolutely no way of saying it besides DJ Lagway has to play better. It cannot look like this, and it was not expected to look like this coming into the season. But at the end of the day, you kind of look inside and you say, well, yeah, you can kind of understand why he's played that poorly this season, but it better get right really quick because in 48 hours, they're playing a Miami team that is really, really good, and it's a Miami team that embarrassed them last year. And so we're having all these conversations about Billy Napier's job security that we're probably going to continue to have for a little bit here in the season, and some of that is due to Lagway's poor play. But they got to get it looking right on Saturday, or it's going to get late early for Florida.
Wait, one of the big things for me that the last couple of days has been tracking player availability stuff heading into the weekend. And one of the things just to follow up on Richard talking about Florida that worth making note of, and this is something Richard was on top of coming out of Florida's game that this past weekend, is Caleb Banks. Caleb Banks, arguably the best overall player on that team, defensive lineman who entered the year with a legitimate chance to be a first-round draft pick. They're going to be moving forward without him now after he re-aggravated an injury that he had dealt with that had plagued him through the early part of the year and prevented him from playing in the first couple games. And then, unfortunately, first game back, gets hurt again. A player with Florida ties that have been tracking the last couple of days who's now at another school, Scooby Williams. So a key piece as a linebacker at Texas A&M. Texas A&M obviously coming off big win over Notre Dame. He got hurt during the course of that game. I think actually when he had an interception, hurt his ankle. They've been putting him through testing. They haven't gotten a definitive answer as to what's going on as of yet, and he would be a big loss if he was out for any real period of time. But there was at least optimism the last conversation that I had that was not going to be or end up being a long-term or season-ending type deal, even though it seems like tomorrow or Friday you should know more in terms of just what actually is going on with that and what the actual injury is and the timetable. And also Bryce Anderson, everyone saw what would happen with that really scary situation. Mike Elko did make note coming out of that, just that Bryce is doing well and should play football again or will play football again, which good news, just considering how bad that looked and how scary that was when that happened.
Yeah, Florida coach Billy Napier. Yeah, put this graphic back up for our listeners and people watching on. I mean, look at this. Billy Napier, career winning percentage at Florida right now is 48.7%. If I can read correctly, that's the worst since 1949 when a guy named Raymond B. Wolf, you never hear that type of name anymore because it was so old-timey, folks. It's been that long since we've seen a coach with a record like this at Florida. We all know the pressure's on Billy Napier. I'm not so sure they just, well, you beat Miami, maybe you give yourself a stay of execution, but the bye week's coming up, guys, and that's when you usually like to make changes if you make changes. The one thing with Florida, though, their defense, it's only allowing 12 points, I think 7 points per game. They've allowed only 3 offensive touchdowns all season, and they've lost 2 games. Their defense is pretty darn good. It's just that the play calling, the offense, the mistakes.
They should fire their offensive play caller.
Hey, who calls the plays there? Seems like we ask that question every 3 weeks there at Florida. Billy Napier, very much. Oh man, maybe dead man walking. But the spread on this, guys, is about a touchdown or less, right? And there's a reason for it. Florida's defense is pretty good, and you got DJ Lagway, who we're all just waiting for him to turn it on, right?
Yeah, I think it's a situation of that defense. I mean, how often do you ever see a quarterback throw 5 interceptions and the team only lose by 10 points, one of those interceptions being a pick 6?
Right.
So my thing is, and you see a lot of this, especially when one side of the ball on a team is really good. At what point in time does that side of the ball just drop the rope and say, fellas, we're not getting any help here, especially when it's your defense? Because defense is something that can be a little bit cyclical, and there are things, and defense, it's just hard to do, obviously, in college football, to be really good in this era of college football that we're in. So eventually, you might see the little infighting, the locker room stuff. I don't know. And Florida's, as Matt has said, Florida's got other issues along its defensive front as far as injuries are concerned as well. George Gumbs still hasn't played this season. LJ McRae is going to be out for a significant time with an injury as well. Brandon Bett, you will note, the player who spit on the USF player, was not suspended for the LSU game last week because they didn't really have a ton of bodies on the defensive front. So, yeah, there are definitely a lot of issues for Florida right now.
And another starting defensive lineman who was out last week, too. I don't know what his status is for this week. But there was another starting defensive lineman, Mekhi Barrow, am I pronouncing that correctly, who was out this past weekend to go along with that. So plagued by injuries, but at the same time still playing well. And the good thing for Florida is when you have a talent like DJ Lagway, regardless of what's happened the last few weeks, he does have the capability of turning it on and looking like the DJ Lagway that we expected to see at any point. Maybe it ends up being this weekend.
As we continue to talk about inside the insiders, Zenitz, I'm interested in Michigan. Obviously, this is the second game that Sharon Moore is suspended and is not going to be able to coach. Biff Poggi taking over and is now the interim coach while he's serving this NCAA suspension. What's it like in Ann Arbor with Biff kind of running the show on game days?
I mean, the way it's been described has just been business as normal. Players have been locked in. Biff is somebody who has a tremendous level of experience with that program going back to when Jim Harbaugh was there, and somebody who has experience as a head coach to go along with that. So this is the first full practice week since Sharon was able to coach all the way leading up to the game last week. And seems like it's just been business as normal to a large degree. Just the one difference is that Sharon's not out there himself.
Yeah, guys, Michigan is the one program that is uniquely equipped to deal with this. 2 years ago, when they went on the run to national championship, Jim Harbaugh coached like 7 games that year. The first 3 games of the season, I remember they had a different head coach, one of them being Sharon Moore, when Harbaugh was serving a suspension. So they know how to do this, actually. They're the one program out of anybody that is uniquely equipped to deal with a head coach who is dispatched for some reason.
Yeah, it just had like a special guest coach every week there, it seemed like that season.
And by the way, with Sharon Moore out of the game, kind of felt like they let Bryce Underwood cook a little bit. Kind of felt like maybe Biff let him throw some darts out there instead of playing too conservative like they did against Oklahoma. So maybe we'll see an exciting Bryce Underwood this week because Sharon Moore is out.
Did Biff wear sleeves?
Yes,
he did.
That was
Regrettably,
apparently a condition of the, as I understand it, a condition of him being head coach. Biff was. You're not gonna embarrass us in front of our friends. As far as
that's too bad. That's too bad. Shehan, what are you working on? What's going on in your life?
Well, it's been a busy week. So I wrote 2 stories ahead of SMU TCU, like I mentioned, kind of the retrospective on the history of that rivalry. I also got to talk to Josh Hoover and spend some time inside of that TCU snow room. That was an experience. Yeah, it was. So for people who don't know, this has been going kind of viral on Twitter and TikTok. They have like this room that literally uses the same kind of machine that they use in the Alps for when they don't have snow, to generate snow as essentially like a recovery type room. They explained it to me. I'll be honest. I'm sorry if you're listening to TCU. Sounds a little BS to me, but you know what? I bet it looks really cool, and I'm sure the recruits freaking love it.
I thought you were going to say that they also had a hologram machine. Tupac walked in. I mean, it's incredible the technology.
So did you go, Shehan? Did you go?
Yeah, I got to go inside. Yeah. I got to go inside the snow room. It's real snow. Like it feels like real snow. Which again, down here in Texas, we don't get a whole lot of that. So that was kind of fun. And just like they have a sauna next to it, and then the snow room next to it. So it's kind of like, you know, a hot cold sort of thing. That's typically how people use it, but it's not as like abrasive as doing a cold.
They call it hot ice. You warm up the ice cubes. I hope someone understands that.
But also I'm going out, Richard, I know you do this every week. I'm going out to Fort Lauderdale to do studio work for the first time. And so you got any tips for me going out there? Brandon, of course, got to do the sideline last week. I'm in studio. Like it's all happening for us, huh?
The camera's going to love you, baby. You're going to be fine with it. It's a lot of fun. They're going to take good care of you down in Fort Lauderdale. It's a really great crew, and they real professional operation down in Fort Lauderdale. You're going to have a lot of fun down there. I'm excited to see you cook on camera. In a fancy
You're going to have some flashy suits, right? You're the
well, I don't want to overdo it either, right? I don't want to
overdo it.
Well, because like, you know, when you're like on camera for real, like, you know, you start getting into the patterns and you start running into issues.
I will say you kind of actually do have to watch the patterns as far as that. So maybe one of your kind of medium tone blazer jackets, but I know you like to go big.
I'll do a more medium tone jacket, and I'll try to do colorful shirt. How about that? I think that's a good little balance that'll kind of work it out.
Good. I'm looking forward to seeing you and do your thing, man. You've always got great intel and knowledge on the game, and I'm looking forward to being able to watch that. This week I did my Jackson Arnold piece. I'm going to do a 2-game rotation this week. I'm going Friday night to Tulsa, Oklahoma State to see what's going on with Mike Gundy and that crew. I had a staffer at Tulsa tell me they got a legitimate shot to beat Oklahoma State.
Did you see, by the way, they pulled a quarterback, not just off the street of UCF. Apparently there was a quarterback.
6'190", I think I saw.
I believe his name is Nate Walters. He played 2 years at North Alabama, an FCS school. Played all right. Decided to focus on school. For whatever reason, this kid who's from Nebraska went to UCF of all places. They could have used some quarterback help last year, by the way. But
fallen Scott Frost
after Haas Haney. That's actually probably true. I didn't even think about that. But Haas Haney, of course, suffers the injury in week 1. And the only other quarterbacks that Oklahoma State has on its roster are true freshmen. So they're just like, come on and move to Stillwater, Oklahoma. So this is just one of the weirdest stories.
Listen, weird things happen in college football. I remember my Razorbacks one year, they brought a quarterback off the intramural field and put him on the bench that week. And then the backup quarterback or third-team quarterback got injured, and they had to put him in. And guess what? He led the team down the field. Barrett didn't know the offense. It was incredible.
That man's name,
I love
Brandon
college
Allen.
football. We get that kind of stuff in college football. We don't get that anywhere else.
Dude, the Texas A&M fans have to be kicking themselves that they couldn't 12th man this kid into their game, man. The fact that he ended up at Oklahoma State instead.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, it's a story either way because of what's happening in Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State the last couple of years. And then after that, I'm just going to drive down an hour and a half to Norman and check out Auburn, Oklahoma in a big SEC matchup there. And as Jackson Arnold returns back to his former home, grew up a Sooner fan, man. You never can go home again, but he's going to go home and try and wreck the house. All right, guys, let's do some quick picks here. We got quite a few games, a lot of ranked on ranked matchups, and some interesting ones. I think we're going to see 2 or 3 new top 25 teams this upcoming week, by the way, after this week comes around. All right. First up for us is number 17, Texas Tech at number 16, Utah. What are we thinking, Richard?
I think Texas Tech gets it done. I think Texas Tech has a couple more ways to win this game. Red Raiders, guns up.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be able to hold the edge, keep Devin Dampier in the pocket, and I think that they're going to be able to force some mistakes. So give me the Red Raiders.
If you can frustrate Texas Tech's defensive front and eliminate Romello Height by utilizing Devin Dampier in some different situations, I like Utah at home. I'm going to pick the Utes. They're my preseason pick to win the Big 12. Number 22, Auburn at number 11, Oklahoma. Oklahoma going for only the third time in school history with multiple top 25 wins before the month of October. Auburn ranked for the first time in the Hugh Freeze era. What we got?
I'm going to go Oklahoma in this spot. I think the Sooners are able to get the job done.
Yeah, I don't think that these are necessarily hugely disparate quality teams, but I think the matchups are just horrendous for Auburn. So give me Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going Sooners as well. I think this could be very similar to the Michigan game. I just don't think Auburn's going to be able to throw the ball effectively. We haven't quite seen it yet from Jackson Arnold, really at any point in his career, and let alone here at Auburn early. I've got the Sooners winning there, double digits. Tulane, the John Summerall train rolling into Oxford at number 13, Ole Miss. I want to put this stat out there. John Summerall is 28-0 when his team outrushes the opponent. What are we thinking this week in Oxford?
I don't think they're out rushing the opponent here. I think Kawan Lacey, maybe Trinidad Chambliss, we'll see if Austin Simmons is back in the game, is able to go. I think Ole Miss runs over quite literally Tulane. They got a good rushing attack. Interested in how that looks on Saturday night.
Yeah, Tulane's already done all they need to do to be a contender in the CFP. They've won 2 power conference games to this point. This is just too big of a challenge for them.
Yeah, Ole Miss offense way too explosive. They're going to roll over Tulane. Number 9, Illinois at number 19, Indiana. I'm fascinated to hear what you guys think of this. Brute force against just an explosive offense.
Give me Indiana, excuse me. I thought Indiana heading into the season was being a little bit slept on. I think people looked at Illinois' schedule and said Illinois can make a playoff run. I thought Illinois was going to be overrated. Indiana wins this game.
Yeah, I definitely had those concerns about Illinois as well, and I've been very impressed by what I've seen from Indiana's offense so far. So give me Indiana, but I don't feel great about it.
I'm going to take Illinois, even though I'm getting tugged the other way with Indiana. Illinois' pass defense worries me when they're in the back end. Indiana could possibly slice and dice them. But, hey, Brett Bielema is going to play some games, keep the ball away. I think Illinois will end up picking up the win here on the road. More battle-tested here early. Number 21, Michigan at Nebraska. Does Go Big Red get that Go Big Home win against Michigan?
Ooh, I think I'm going to take Nebraska in this game. Tough spot. And if it's a close game, as I think it will be, you never know about Nebraska, but I'm taking the Huskers.
Yeah, I'm going to take Nebraska as well. I think this is a huge opportunity for them. And like I said, I just think that Michigan is still figuring some stuff out right now.
I'm going to go Nebraska as well, and I'll say this too. I think Dylan Raiola has a huge game. I think he's going to have a big, big game against Michigan's defense. South Carolina at number 23, Missouri. LaNorris Sellers still up in the air whether he's going to play for South Carolina. Gamecocks look a lot different when they don't have LaNorris Sellers out there, guys.
Missouri, with or without LaNorris Sellers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that without, they are in huge, huge, huge trouble, and with they're still probably in a little bit of trouble. So Missouri's offense keeps rolling, and they take this one.
Ahmad Hardy goes for 120 plus. Missouri rolls against the Gamecocks. Arizona State at Baylor.
I like Baylor in this spot because I love Baylor's offense. Points at a premium in this game. Everybody's going to be scoring them. Don't really love Arizona's passing attack right now. Is a lot to be desired here, and they're going to have to keep up in this game. Baylor.
Big dynamic that's changed across the week. Safety Xavier Alford will be out for Arizona State, and that is a guy that I do not think that Arizona State wants to be without. So I think Baylor's going to score just one more touchdown than Arizona State.
Baylor just so impressive physically, and then Sawyer Robertson just can throw the ball against anybody. I've got Baylor with a big-time win here as they make a case as potentially the Big 12 champion later down the road. North Carolina at UCF. This has Sickos Committee written all over it.
This is a mid-off.
UCF is not as bad, I think, as I expected them to be. I take UCF in this game. Just have not been impressed with Gio Lopez throwing the ball.
I haven't either, but I still have a lot of questions and concerns about UCF, especially defensively. So I think I lean North Carolina, but man, if they lose this game, then it is free falling time in Chapel Hill.
I got UCF in a weird, strange game. Weird things are going to happen in this one. Florida at number 4, Miami. Billy Napier is against the wall. Miami is just breaking through the wall, running through opponents. What do we got here in this big rivalry?
Even though I think Florida's defense is pretty good, Miami's offense is just way too strong. Miami's offense is way too good in this spot.
Yeah, Miami's going to love being able to put the final bullet into Florida this season, I think. So I think that they win big.
I've got Carson Beck has been phenomenal, but more importantly, his receivers have been better. They have bailed him out of some tough situations, and he's riding high. He's got confidence. I think Miami rolls in this one, maybe as much as by 3 touchdowns. I think they're going to put out a statement there. All right, last game we're look at, and this is for you, producer Aaron, because I looked at this in the format and must have been put in by him. Cal at San Diego State. You can watch this one actually on CBS Sports Network, I believe.
Cal, big in this game. I am a big believer in Yaron Kiavi Sangopolitelli. Look,
He did it.
I got it done. I did get it done. Look, you take a look at that Cal schedule after this game. I'm just saying.
It's a lot like Georgia Tech. Like, Georgia Tech's got a pretty good schedule the rest of the way in the ACC. Maybe hey, Georgia Tech versus Cal in the ACC championship. You heard it here first. Not really.
Yeah, I also just have not, obviously, yes, I'm picking Cal. I haven't loved what I've seen from Sean Lewis at San Diego State to this point. I was hoping for a little more. It's still year 2. He's a multi-year builder, but it would be nice, frankly, if he showed a little something in this game. But I think Cal rolls.
Yeah, Cal rolls. JKS continues to add zeros to his check. He's going to be a big-time player, and someone's going to try and get him. All right. Guys, big weekend on tap. I can't wait to watch college football this week. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. We will be back here on the College Football Insiders Sunday morning to recap the weekend that was and react to what's going to happen in the future, and also share some intel from our noses as they sniff out all those juicy nuggets all over the ground. That didn't sound correct at all. That sounded weird. Sniffing out juicy nuggets. What? Okay. All right. College Football Insiders.
What do y'all do up there in Arkansas, man?
Hey, we are chicken country here. So maybe that's why. And that's all my kid eats. So I got chicken nuggets on the mind at all times. All right. College Football Insiders back Sunday morning. Like us and subscribe to us on YouTube. Search for College Football Insiders wherever you get your podcast. Spread the word. We got the intel. We got the info. We're bringing the heat. We will see you Sunday back here